You're listening to The Local Maximum, episode 180.
Time to expand your perspective. Welcome to The Local Maximum. Now, here's your host, Max Sklar.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome. You have reached another Local Maximum. Today, I'm going to have a hard time getting my energy up, so please help me get my energy up today. It's been raining for 5 days. I don't know. But as promised, we add extra, bling, fling, flare to every live recorded, not live recorded,
in-studio recording.
In-studio recording with video of The Local Maximum. And today, of course, we have the Local Maximum. What is this? A little poster thingy?
The local logo?
Yes. Unfortunately, it's only in my video. You could see, hopefully we'll switch to Aaron's video. Aaron, wave. You could see my hand right here. So, okay, we got that. And so, yeah, let's get into it. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. So let's get started. It sounds like a lot of wealthy people are looking on at like what is going on in the world, and they're saying, you know what? I don't think I want to live on this planet anymore. So
well, that's an awfully pessimistic spin to put on it. But yeah, this is a very timely issue. So we're recording on July 9th today.
Right.
And on July 11th, Richard Branson is scheduled to go into space. There may be an asterisk on that statement. I'm
going to have to come in at the beginning if this doesn't work out and say, hey, we recorded this, but you know. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and what is it? 9 days later, on July 20th, Jeff Bezos is scheduled to go into space. So it's a lot happening very quickly in the private space sector. So
I've been excited about this stuff for a long time. I covered stories like this when I was on Yale Radio back in like 2004, 2005. But I'm just not I feel like I don't really have a good sense of how technology works when it comes to the space race, whether the private one or the public one. You might have a little bit more knowledge into this. But
let's say we talked before we started recording that this was going to be a short episode. So don't open with such a boundless question like that, because we'll be here all day.
Okay, Aaron, tell me everything you know. Okay, so let's start with Branson. So that's Virgin Galactic. I always remember Virgin Galactic because you all hear about Virgin Galactic going into space. And I remember one time I was traveling on I was going to the airport, and I was trying to ask like, where do I go? And they were like, what airlines are you using? And I accidentally said Virgin Galactic, and they were like, what, are you going into space? I was like, oh no, Atlantic. Sorry, I'm not. I'm only going to like Houston or something. I'm not going to the moon. Well, these guys aren't quite going to the moon either. So let's
not yet.
So where are these guys going?
So these are going into not even low Earth orbit. They're for the most part, they're not going into orbit. They're going beyond an imaginary line. What is it? The Kármán line. I'm sure I'm botching the pronunciation.
Or they're saying they're not flying above the Kármán line.
Well, yeah, that's where some of the debate is. But
okay.
they're going just far enough into space that they can make the claim that they've gone into space.
Okay.
And that comes with an asterisk along with it, because where does space begin is not a clear binary issue. It is something that is determined legally, much like is a tomato a fruit or a vegetable?
Right. So it's not like a question of, where does the atmosphere end and the ocean begin, on the ocean floor. That's kind of obvious, probably within,
right.
a few,
sea level is pretty easy to define. Space level, less so.
Yeah, it's not like the atmosphere just ends at some point. It's more gradual. But there are certain places, if I know my science correctly, I'm going to expose so much ignorance here. There are certain areas where the composition of the atmosphere, actually changes. It's not that it's just gradually peters out as you go up. There are certain layers to it. Am I correct?
There is a layered nature, but even within that, there are not hard dividing lines at
right.
certain altitudes.
Okay.
So there is the aforementioned Kármán line, which is at 100 kilometers. For those of us in America, that's about 62 miles above sea level. That's what the international community recognizes as the beginning of space. and the altitude that you need to go to get your astronaut wings.
So what happens at this line? Is there something specific that changes when you go above this altitude?
You've literally crossed an imaginary line, and
Okay.
that's what happens as is hinted at by the fact that it's a nice, convenient round number, like 100 kilometers.
Okay.
In the United States, the FAA has a slightly different determination. They consider the beginning of space at 50 miles, and that's the level at which they award cruise astronaut wings.
So it sounds like they're going above that, but just below Kármán line.
In the case of Virgin Galactic,
Kármán line.
I believe they are flying to over 50, but they are not hitting the 62-mile line.
Okay.
Whereas I believe that Jeff Bezos, when he takes his flight, he is going to be going above that 62-mile marker.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So this is
You have to consider the source,
Right.
but an article we were looking at earlier.
So this is still very close to the Earth. Like,
I mean, compared to the moon, absolutely.
compared to the moon, right? But what about compared to like the International Space Station or something like that?
Yeah, so I would have to double check where that is. That is definitely higher because that is in a relatively stable orbit. Where they're going, you wouldn't be able to turn off the engines and stay there. If you do nothing, you will re-enter. And I believe they're going to be doing a more intentional re-entry. They're not just going to be waiting for their orbit to decay, but they're still in enough atmosphere that gravity and drag would bring them back down naturally one way or another.
Right.
So this is very analogous to some of the earliest human space flight that was done by nation states. So
they're still catching
Yuri
up.
Gagarin and Alan Shepard, and I'm blanking on John Glenn. So I forget. I always forget which was first and which into space and which was the first to orbit between Glenn and Shepard.
Oh, I don't know.
So Gagarin was first. Period into space, but between Glenn and Shepard, one of them was the first to get into space, so basically matching the Gagarin achievement, and then the other was the first to actually complete a full orbit. So
this is they're catching up. Could it be that they're really catching up to tech from the 1950s, or are they just taking a completely different approach here? Was it something like the tech from the 1950s was just kind of like seat of your pants? We're just going to do whatever we can do to get this guy up here, whereas they're trying to do something a little more sustainable?
Yes and no. So at the most basic level, the technologies are different. Those 1960s flights, actually, I don't know off the top of my head whether Gagarin was in the late 50s. I believe it was in the 60s.
Okay.
But that era, they were being flown in capsules, which did re-enter with minimal control and kind of big tin cans, and then crashed into either the ocean where they were picked up, or I believe in the case of the Russians, into the desert. Both of these cases are going to be landing their craft. In the case of Spaceship Two, which is the Virgin Galactic.
Can I just say, first of all, just on a branding thing, Spaceship One was 15 years ago. They're still working on Spaceship Two. Don't you think they would have moved on to like version 3 or 4? Like, how many different iPhones have there been since then? I don't know.
Yeah. So Spaceship Two, and let me just double check my notes here to make sure I'm getting this right.
Okay.
But yeah, so it is Spaceship Two.
Okay.
And I think they would not have moved on from the Spaceship One design if it had not been for the 2014 crash that resulted in a fatality of one of their test pilots.
Right.
That resulted in a major redesign. That's not to say they haven't made minor and important changes to the design along the way, but going from Spaceship One to Spaceship Two, I think, was a major redesign as a result.
Well, 2014. So that was a while ago. I feel like at the time, if I remember correctly, they were like, yeah, we're going to have our space tourism product industry set up in like 18 months, 2 years. And then that setback happened. People died. I believe it was one person in flight. Was it one on the ground? No, or was it two on the flight?
I think they had two test pilots on board, perhaps, and one was severely injured, and the other was a fatality.
Okay, yeah. And so this basically set back the industry 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah, I think
more.
it's fair to say that they thought the point they were at then is about equivalent to where they were 6 to 12 months ago.
Okay.
Given current progress.
Okay.
That they'd had a person had flown on Spaceship One into at least past that 50-mile mark. So what the FAA determines to be space. And so they had that to their credit that they met
10
the
years
record.
ago.
But they'd never brought a passenger.
Okay.
It had only been, I think when that happened, it was just the test pilot that was on board.
So now they have a passenger, and it's I hate to say this, but it's not surprising that in a project like this, you'll get some of these kind of catastrophes that occur from time to time.
Yeah, so that was the other thing I was going to say.
Space is so dangerous.
Is that the technology is dramatically different. Both vehicle types that we're talking about here are going to be landing themselves. So Spaceship Two is going to land somewhat more similar to the shuttle as a big glider, whereas I think it's the New Shepard capsule that rides atop of the Blue Origin rocket, that'll be landing more similar to the style of what we've seen with the SpaceX rockets.
But wait, which Blue Shepard? Who is that? Is that Branson or is that's Bezos?
Spaceship Two
is Branson,
which is also referred to. So I think Spaceship Two is the design class, and Unity is the actual vehicle.
All right.
So that is what Branson will be flying on.
Okay.
And I believe New Shepard is the vehicle that Jeff Bezos will be flying on.
Okay, so they're both doing it this month, and they're both of them are flying, are going up in their own companies.
Yes, they're both going up as passengers.
So it's sort of like it seems like. Yeah, I mean it's and they've got skin in the game here.
Yeah, and they are not going to be the first passengers on board. I believe Spaceship Two has flown with a passenger. It was the head of the Virgin Galactic astronaut program. She flew with that. I think she was the first passenger. And I believe. Well, actually, I would have to double check if the Blue Origin spacecraft have flown with passengers on board before. I believe they've had a manned test flight, but perhaps without passengers.
Right. So to make this exciting, the fact that, you've got two of these billionaires going up in the same month. Elon Musk is
he's
in the game
nowhere to be
well.
seen here.
But he's in the game. But, the media is framing this as a new space race, and it's probably given the egos of these people. I love this quote from Branson in I think that was the Reuters article. Yes, it's honestly not a race, Branson told Reuters in an interview. If it's a race. And then I'm going to read the rest of it in a second, but I love how he starts. It's not a race, but if it were a race, I'm about to win because I'm going 2 days. But he said, if it is a race, it's a race to produce wonderful spaceships that can make many more people be able to access space. And I think that's both of our aims. I think what he's trying to say is that it's not the kind of race that you might have had, between the United States and the Soviet Union or something, trying for geopolitical reasons. But all of these guys, want to be the first to get there. And they, look, if you're trying to launch a tech product, of course you want to be first.
Yeah,
well, most of the time.
There's a lot of cachet to be had here by hitting these targets, and just as an aside, saying it's not a race, but if it were a race, I'd be winning is perhaps the most British way of stating that possible.
Well, that's not literally what he said. I kind of filled in the line.
I know, but it's right. I'm too much of a gentleman to say that I'm winning this race. But if I weren't such a gentleman, that is precisely what I would say.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's like the equivalent of someone saying a gentleman never kisses and tells, because you don't say that when you haven't kissed and desire not to tell,
unless you want to give off the impression that you have.
Well, and both of these men, Branson somewhat more so than Bezos, but they're both very well availed of PR. But Branson has more of a history of both kind of PR stunts, but also a history of adventuring. He attempted to circumnavigate the world in a balloon, which is very Jules Verne. He's attempted to set some I think it was crossing the Atlantic in a speedboat records. So he's done some of these adventurer type things before. So this is not completely out of character for him, although he is a much older man now than he was when he was doing that more frequently.
Yeah. Okay. So, all All right, let's see what else you have here. So the Virgin launcher. First of all, they're selling tickets here for little space rides. So let's see how much. So he sold 600 flight reservations at a $250,000 a ticket, $250,000. And it says here, hopes to eventually slash the cost of each seat to $40,000. Another order of magnitude, and you're getting within the realm of commercial space flight.
Right.
So,
well, and to be fair, another source I saw said that while the $250,000 for a seat is the current ticket rate, there are expectations that as soon as this flight goes off safely, which knock on wood, hopefully it does, that they expect the price to double in the short term.
By the time this goes out, people will know if it went off safely.
Yeah. Although to be fair, in spaceflight, it is not unusual for a launch to be scrubbed and delayed. So while it's scheduled for the 11th, I would not take a significant bet against there being a slip in the schedule, because when safety of lives is at stake here, there's a strong bias towards, if the weather doesn't cooperate, or if anything at all in the pre-flight check goes wrong, they will push that out until they have removed all of the variables from the equation.
So I'm just going to push this episode and see what happens, because I feel like people are smart enough to figure it out, given where we are and given what happened. Okay, so
you mentioned Virgin Launcher, which I'm just going to throw that out. So it's related to Virgin Galactic. In fact, they used to be under the same corporate umbrella until they split off a little bit, because I believe Virgin Galactic actually went public through a SPAC in the last year. But Virgin Launcher is the side of the business specifically targeting satellite launches, so not passenger launches. It's using a very similar approach, which I don't know if we mentioned this, but so Spaceship Two is the actual vehicle that goes into space, but it does not launch from the ground like a rocket. It does not take off under its own power. It gets kind of cantilevered under a large aircraft, which is actually a cool double fuselage design, which then takes off, flies up to I believe it's 45,000 feet. And then releases the rocket, at which point they separate from each other, and then it turns on the engines and flies the rest of the way into space. So those of you who are familiar with the rocket equation, which I don't know how many of our listeners that is, but
so I'm only tangentially familiar with it, so you might as well go into it.
I'm going to give the most simple approach here. It's just that you burn the most fuel getting the first little bit off the ground, and the further up you get, the less proportionally it takes. So they're having the airplane do that first heavy lifting up to basically the upper bounds of the commercial flight realms. And that means that they can be much more efficient with the actual rocket powered portion of the flight.
So I'm thinking the reason for that is that, first of all, you're getting going. So you have momentum to get up. You have the at the bottom, you also have to, you have to raise all the fuel that you're going to use later, as well as the payload. So, that sounds about right. It makes a lot of sense. So they're going to glide you up.
They can take off and land from regular airports rather than a typical rocket launch center. So
So now, what about landing? So do they land? Do they have to reconnect to the plane while landing?
No, I believe Spaceship Two lands in the style of a glider, very similar to how the space shuttle worked, in that the space shuttle. Except the space shuttle took off like a rocket, and then it landed like a airplane or a very large glider.
This goes on the back of an airplane, then launches from pretty high up.
I think it's actually underneath the airplane.
Underneath the airplane. Yes. So how does it go? How does it get past the airplane?
It gets released kind of like a bomb. And they glide away from each other, and then it turns on the rocket.
All right. I was like, well, then how does it get above that without pushing the airplane up? Okay, I see. Maybe it will help if we see
not like the space shuttle, which actually when they moved the space shuttle, because frequently the space shuttle would launch from Florida and it would land out in California. So to get it back to the other side of the country, if necessary for launches, they would actually load that on top of a large airplane. I can't remember whether it was a 747 or if it was a different Boeing aircraft, but it would fly mounted on top of, which is a bizarre looking configuration.
Okay. You have a little bit some notes here saying that you have some personal connections.
Oh yeah, so a little disclosure. So I do work. Part of my professional work is in the space business. So a number of these companies I have direct or tangential connections to. I did some work a number of years back with the folks at what is now Virgin Launcher, trying to integrate some network technology into their launch vehicle. And I have a current professional relationship with some folks over at Blue Origin.
Okay.
So disclosing that, but this private space business is kind of incestuous in a way that I have a number of classmates or people I've collaborated with who have worked at SpaceX, Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic, and also Strato Launcher. So they kind of move all around. So SpaceX is Musk.
Okay, SpaceX is Musk,
which is not in this current launch batch.
And Blue Origin is
Bezos.
Okay, that's going to take a long time to keep all of these.
So the other thing that we didn't mention in our kickoff here is that Bezos taking this flight, I think it's along with his brother and also one of the original Mercury 13 female astronaut candidates. This is in the wake of him stepping down from the CEO role at Amazon. And there's some speculation was a major motivator for that move that he wants to be able to dedicate more of his focus to this competition with Musk. And I think if you ask Musk and Bezos, Branson is kind of a latecomer. Also ran. He's not really competing in the same market as them.
Who are they talking about?
So I'd say that's their opinion of Branson because he's going for this low.
Even though he's been in on this for a while, he's been doing this for like 20 years.
He's not a latecomer in that sense. He's absolutely had this objective for a long time. But they're both looking at, okay, we're going to do some low Earth orbit and some tourism stuff, but our real objective is the heavy lift, heavy launch into higher and further orbits. Talking about missions to the moon, possibly missions to other planets. That is very much a focus of their capability suite. That is nowhere on Virgin Galactic's agenda, to my knowledge. If there's the opportunity for a hotel on the moon, I'm sure that Branson will be heavily invested in that. But he's not pushing for moon missions anytime soon.
What do any of these people have a business model? Like, are they just going to sell tickets that you could be waitlist for 10 seconds and probably, you're probably not going to be in good shape when you get up there. You're going to be so discombobulated, you probably won't be able to enjoy it. What exactly are they trying to get to? These are short flights,
and I think the tourism piece is going to remain that for a while. There was some preliminary research work done by another billionaire, I think it was Bigelow Aerospace, looking at setting up some sort of space hotel in orbit, which I think would be very much on brand for a collaboration with Branson. But I think that's a ways off still.
Yeah.
And like
stuff,
I said,
we used to talk about this 15 years ago, and it was like, well, this is a ways off. But by a ways off, I always thought, well, 15 years, we'd be a lot closer. I guess we are a lot closer, but, still no specific product on the mass market scale or even, look, it's not going to be mass market scale for a while, but you don't even have a few extremely wealthy individuals, going into some kind of space hotel. But hey, maybe that could happen in the near future. What about that space elevator idea? I guess that wasn't going to happen for a while.
Yeah, that's going to require some dramatic materials breakthroughs
fiction.
Still to see if that materializes.
Oh, that would be better to get to the hotel, I think. Although none of this is, all of this is very, not in the cards for the near future. Maybe in 100 years. Well, who knows?
So I think the tourism bit is kind of a side gig, publicity, maybe a way for some additional income and kind of a sustaining business. But the real cash cow right now, at least for Musk and Bezos, is commercial applications, not consumer applications. So selling to the national space agencies and to large corporations for the capability of putting things in orbit.
So what kind of things would you want to put into orbit, like satellites?
So that's where
satellite is literally
the Virgin launcher is coming in with their launcher one. They can put satellites into low orbit. Both SpaceX and Blue Origin are aggressively pursuing that field. I know that SpaceX and Blue Origin were both big players in pursuing the contracts for the next lunar lander, contracts that were were given to SpaceX, but are currently being protested by the national team, which Blue Origin is part of. So they're going after the government market as well as commercial needs to put things in orbit. There is not, as of yet, a commercial industrial use for space. No private companies are setting up mining camps on asteroids or the moon, but that's the type of stuff they talk about in the medium to long term perspectives.
Right. There's always this idea that you're going to mine a space asteroid, and like there's always people saying
significant
like
helium stores, helium-3 on the moon that could be a major energy resource. Although it's a little bit of a self-perpetuating thing that the most efficient use of that helium-3 on the moon would be for refueling rockets for going further. So it's not really a resource you would bring back to Earth necessarily.
It seems like some people talk about mining precious metals in space, but it seems to me that at least for the time being, if you want more of those precious metals, it's going to be a lot more cost effective to just get them here on Earth than to mine them in space. But who knows?
Well, it depends on the scale you're talking about.
Right.
I mean, I feel like it was not that long ago they talked about an asteroid that they discovered that had more gold on it than on the entire planet Earth.
Right. But getting it would be
right. It's right now it is still non-trivial to.
You can't literally just take and even if you can land there, you can't just take the whole thing down with you. You have to probably get bits of it at a time and bring them back, and then purify that. And who knows what you have to do.
Well, so that brings the other piece of the equation in here, which is. A lot of people have said this space race is stupid. It's a bunch of millionaires just, measuring their egos against each other.
Excuse me, billionaires.
Thank you for correcting me. No trillionaires yet, but they're working on it. Which is not incorrect. That is definitely a piece of it. However, there is a reason that we should be excited about this, other than just space is cool and we get to watch this.
Right.
It's that they are dramatically driving down the cost of putting things into space. And you may say, I don't care about space tourism. I don't care how much it costs to put people into space. But things that you use every day are influenced by the cost of putting things into space. As we mentioned before, satellites. I think most of us, it's huge for communications. The cable television you watch, the internet you use, the cell phone communication you do, it all has some tie-in to satellites at some point. GPS signals, and so the cheaper they can do that, the more effective that can be. And we don't need to get into the Starlink internet network right now, but that's directly tied into SpaceX's mission, that not only are they running it, but also their launchers allow them to put all those satellites into place. And there may be some interesting synergies they're planning to leverage out of there. But the fundamental thing is that this is driving down the cost of moving things into space. So just as an example, I looked up some numbers before we were recording for what the cost to put things into low Earth orbit would be, and in current fiscal year 2021 dollars. And so if you were to use the space shuttle, which, yes, the NASA space shuttle is retired, so you couldn't actually do it today, but when it was operating, it would cost you $65,400 per kilogram to put cargo into orbit.
Okay.
When the space shuttle went out of business, we shifted to, for all of our moving personnel and equipment up to the International Space Station, the U.S. government started contracting out to Russia to use their Soyuz spacecraft, which is a capsule-based system that dates back to the USSR, and that cost only a dramatic price decrease of $17,900 per kilogram. Dramatic drop there. Still the same order of magnitude, but several multiples less. Falcon 9, which is the current SpaceX launcher that they're using for moving not just cargo but also people up to the space station, because earlier this year they delivered a crew. I think they've done that twice now. That costs only $2,600 per kilogram. So that's a full order of magnitude less. So that is the main
2,006. So from like, what was it, from 65?
From over $65,000 a kilogram to under 2,600.
It's under 2,600. Sorry. Oh,
yeah.
God, the numbers.
So that's a huge decrease in cost, and that doesn't take into account things like the fact that with with the reusable launchers, they not only have the ability to deliver stuff to the space station, but they can also bring stuff back. That they can turn these around, have them on the launch pad, in a matter of weeks, if not days. There's major innovations happening there in the logistics chain and the overall cost efficiency. And so that is a huge development. If you're at all interested in establishing a prolonged presence on the moon or on Mars or even just in orbit, there's some cool scientific things that can be done even if we never go beyond low Earth orbit. Having the cost to move cargo back and forth as low as possible is a huge gain there. So if we have to put up with some obnoxious egos to get there, I think that's a cost well worth paying.
Well, sometimes obnoxious egos, you could channel them in an appropriate way. You can get some stuff done. It's better than it's better than the alternative, because obnoxious egos are kind of going to be there no matter what.
Yeah, the one person who's conspicuously absent from the space race is our friend over at Facebook. And I think
you're talking about Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, I think if Zuckerberg got involved,
he had the flag, in the what was that? I should just take it out like this. It was like in the
his little 4th of July
jet ski.
Was it Instagram?
It was
or
a
Snapchat?
way bigger flag than the one I had. It was like, woohoo, America. Okay.
Yeah. So he is not involved in the space race, to my knowledge. But maybe if he were to follow in Bezos's footsteps and step down from Facebook and focus his efforts on another sector like that could improve his image dramatically. Or it may just be another reason to hate him. I don't know.
Well, I mean, another one who's missing, Bill Gates, you'd think would be into this. And I know Paul Allen has done some stuff in this area, although I'm not too familiar with what.
Right. I mentioned Stratolauncher earlier because I have a colleague who's working there now. But I think
Is that from Paul Allen? Or
that was he was involved in that.
Okay.
And I think they're much more along the lines of what of what Virgin Launcher or I'm completely blanking on the proper name for it now. The Virgin Launcher business was focusing on.
Okay.
That they're doing a similar. I think it's launched from aircraft, but hypersonic to space, low orbit vehicles.
Okay. Cool. So, and you also have something else written here about supply missions being cheaper as well.
Yeah. So these numbers are a little dated because it goes back to 2018 when
we just talked about
they last rebid it.
We just talked about the price of putting something in orbits. This is the price of supplying.
Right. So this is looking at that on a per mission basis for resupply flights to the ISS. Rather than breaking it down on a per kilogram basis.
Does the ISS still around? I thought it was.
Yep.
I thought it was falling.
There's still. I think it's at least 3 astronauts, a combination of astronauts and cosmonauts.
It was Mir that fell.
Mir was.
Space station.
I think Mir was bought privately, but then eventually was deorbited.
Yeah, and then it fell from the sky, right?
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So the ISS is still in orbit. They're still. They have to make adjustments to it. They have to reboost it occasionally, but it's still up there.
All right. Very cool. Okay. So I think, there's a lot to think of on this, and thank you for telling us more about it. I'm really interested in this, and, who knows, maybe one day one of us will get into space. I don't know if you'd be interested in going. I certainly would think twice about it, but I would consider it.
Yeah, it's something that I'd definitely be interested in considering. I mean, I did apply to the astronaut program once upon a time.
Whoa!
I was rejected. I have that rejection letter in a folder somewhere. I think it might be a hard sell to the family.
Oh, yeah. Well,
for the same reason I gave up flying and skydiving, I may not be able to go into space.
Yeah. All right. So, since we can't go into space, what's happening with this Slovakian flying car that I saw in the New York Post? Probably not nearly as dramatic. So apparently there is this company that's coming out with a flying car based out of Slovakia. And it was on the news recently. It was just the Post. I don't even think it made any...
I've seen it mentioned in a number of places. I don't know if it's all being sourced from the same article.
Probably. Anyway, they did an intercity flight from, I don't know if I pronounced this, but from Nitra to Bratislava. And Bratislava is a little bit east of Vienna. And so it's called a roadable aircraft. So it's not called a flying car. It's basically a driving plane. It's a roadable aircraft. So it sounds like you kind of just, the wings kind of fold back and you're allowed to just drive it on the street or something like that.
Right.
So, and as you point out, this is this particular car's first intercity flight, but this is not the first time a quote flying car, which is really just a small airplane, right, has flown between cities. So, I mean, these things make the news quite every few years. You get something like this make the news. But is this something that like the average person could theoretically use someday? Because it seems just insane to put this in the hands of, say the same people who are driving, particularly when I drive across the border in Massachusetts here. You don't want those people. I don't think you want those people from Boston up in the skies.
Yeah, so this actually calls back to, I think it was episode 163 where we talked about flying cars, in particular because of a law, the Jetson law.
That was up here in New Hampshire.
That was passed in New Hampshire.
I haven't seen any flying cars, by the way, since then.
And I think even if there are some out there, you're not going to see them anytime soon because there are so few of them. Just it's kind of a base rate thing. But so I on the one hand, this is exciting because more flying cars. I think this is a technology that needs to be debugged. Just like the more companies are working on the self-driving car thing, the closer we are to finding a viable solution.
But that seems awfully close compared to this,
right? Yes and no. I think this is something that if you have a significant amount of disposable income, you will be able to go out and buy one of these in the next under 5 years. I think so. Part of the reason that I caveated this story that it's a little misleading. They are technically correct when they say flying car completes first intercity test flight. What they didn't say is flying car completes the first intercity test flight, because it is the first intercity test flight for this particular type of flying car. So correct in that sense.
Other cars,
but other flying cars have completed intercity test flights, notably in the U.S. Terrafugia. They earlier this year in January they got their
that's a cool looking
their light
plane.
Sport aircraft or light sport
car
airworthiness certification.
I don't know whether to call it a plane or a car.
Yeah, so again, they are very much they are certified as an airplane, but the objective is to get it dual certified so that you can also drive it on the road.
Gotcha.
And these are going to be right now a general aviation private aircraft. Your entry level is looking You could go real cheap and get one for under $100K. But if you want something new manufacture, you're looking at like $250,000. And these are in these $250,000 to $500,000 band, I think, for the type of investment you'd be making.
Okay.
But unlike a fully autonomous self-driving car, I think you can actually go out and do that in the next couple of years here. Are you going to see the roads full of them? I don't think so.
Well, especially since they fly,
the next decade.
I don't think any of them should be on the road.
Nor are you going to be looking up in the sky and seeing them anytime soon either.
Yeah.
Whereas when the breakthrough happens with self-driving cars, I think there's going to be an explosion of them on the streets.
So do you know the answer to this question? Are you supposed to drive these things like above the existing highways? Or are you supposed to drive in current flight paths where the regular airplanes go?
These are, when they're in the air, they're treated as aircraft, and when they're on the road, they're treated as automobiles.
So if I'm coming up,
and these are not vertical takeoff and landing. So you have to drive to an airport to take off and then land at another airport, and then you can drive off in them. So I think we talked about it a little bit the last time. This avoids the need of I'm going to get in my private airplane and fly to another airport, and then I need to rent a car to get around in the city.
Yeah.
And then, then I can fly back home and then get in my car and drive to my house.
Right. So even if you're traveling in style these days, you still have to have several different steps. And I always find it very luxurious almost whenever I cut out a step. Like getting a car here, I cut out a step to a lot of public transportation. Makes things a lot easier. Here, you could drive to an airport. I could even drive to a small private airport, which, is not like driving to the major airport. You could drive probably close by for a lot of these things, and then take off and then go where you want to go. Although you probably need some training on how to fly it. Although people do that. People learn that stuff all the time.
And the other thing about this light sport airworthiness certification, it is a class of aircraft and I believe a class of license, which is if not easier to achieve, easier to maintain. I know with a lot of private
a driver's
pilots,
license.
Well, certainly than a driver's license, but even compared to a regular private pilot's license, because
Okay.
one of the things about a private pilot's license is it requires you to have a periodic medical examinations to maintain your airworthiness, and pilots, like many hobbies, are an aging group. And when you hit a certain age, it becomes more and more difficult to maintain that. Whereas the requirements for a light sport aircraft license are less rigorous. So targeting this specific band of aircraft means that not only are they is it easier to certify for that from the aircraft/vehicle manufacturer perspective, but also that it's easier for prospective pilots to get and maintain their certification.
So one of the funny things I've found about moving here to New Hampshire is that now I drive to the supermarket, which is like the same distance as the supermarket was in Brooklyn where I walked. But I don't think, now I'm picturing just like, why don't we just fly there? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, if you had a drone or a helicopter and you were able to, just take off from the roof, that wouldn't be so ridiculous.
Yeah, I guess
Which is, I think that's part of the appeal. Like you were saying, the more steps you can cut out, if you can do door to door with minimal transitions, that's attractive. Even if this particular vehicle is not really going to accomplish that for the masses in a reasonable way.
A detachable drone to like look ahead or to pick things up. I'm just coming up with ideas here. All right. So look, maybe I'm not taking this as seriously as it should be taken, but it'd be cool to have it one day. It says here at the end, the prototype cost about $2.3 million. That doesn't really mean much because prototypes are a prototype for a new car could cost millions, and then they get the cost down when they mass produce it. It's really interesting stuff. Maybe we will get off the ground in the future, and in many ways, whether it's space or in some kind of Jetsons like flying car. We're still waiting. Aaron, any last thoughts before we wrap up for today?
I'm going to be eagerly watching to see the results from the billionaire space race.
Yes.
And also watching to see how that trickles down to the rest of us.
I'm not going to announce the live stream because by the time this goes out, the live stream is over. But there is a live stream, I believe, on just in case it's Is
this the one that Colbert is going to be hosting?
Colbert is hosting this?
I saw something about that.
No.
Don't quote me on it.
Okay. Well, anyway, I will look up the live stream for the Virgin Galactic launch on Sunday, or if it doesn't happen Sunday, it'll happen after. I'm sure there'll be one for Bezos as well. This is exciting. I always like watching this stuff. All right. Great. I think that's all we have for today. There's so many things I could talk about next week.
I got it right here. We'll include the link in the episode. But yes, Stephen Colbert will be hosting the Virgin Galactic live stream of the launch.
Okay. Oh, but that will be over by the time this comes out. But all right. Well, good enough. And I'll also try to find one for Bezos as well. All right. What do we have the next couple of weeks? I'm going to try to do maybe a solo show. You could join me.
You mentioned you were going to talk a little bit about some of the things that you discussed up at the Pork Fest.
Oh, yes. There's a lot of kind of interesting things in terms of sort of political theory, I guess. Well, we talked last week about ranked choice voting, and it turned out that Eric Adams did win that. So that we already kind of analyzed that to death. So definitely check out last week if you're interested in that. But sort of the idea of constitutions in general, and also like the idea of how you set up the game, and it's not just for government, but for any organization, like in a corporation too, or in crypto, like how you set up the rules of the game, I think is very important to how the game turns out. And so that's a design project in and of itself. So I do want to talk more about that kind of thing where
I'm already thinking about
set up the rules of decision making.
Callbacks to some of the things we discussed in the context of Coinbase and Basecamp and how they set up the rules for running their companies, and that affected outcomes.
Right. So in there, it's not like a specific, person A gets to decide this and person B gets to decide this. It's more like a cultural thing, but that's important too. So we can continue with that as well. All right. So,
exciting.
Yeah, lots of stuff. Definitely check out the locals, maximum.locals.com, and talk to us. Aaron, thank you for being so involved in that group, and we have some good discussions on there. And also the website, localmaxradio.com. All right. Have a great week, everyone. That's the show. To support the Local Maximum, sign up for exclusive content and our online community at maximum.locals.com. The Local Maximum is available wherever podcasts are found. If you want to keep up, remember to subscribe on your podcast app. Also, check out the website with show notes and additional materials at localmaxradio.com. If you want to contact me, the host, send an email to localmaxradio@gmail.com. Have a great week.
Feel the power.